Good evening, everyone. Welcome, members and guests. I'm Kevin Kosick, the Executive Director for the Book Club of California, and on behalf of the Book Club, our members, our volunteers, and our staff, I'm delighted to welcome you all to the 2025 Oscar Lewis Awards. For those of you that might be new to us, the Book Club of California is a nonprofit, member and donor-supported organization that was founded in 1912. Our mission is to preserve and promote the history of the book and the book arts. And we have a particular interest in the literature and the history of California and the West. The book club publishes limited edition books. We host a year-round series of exhibitions and programs both here in San Francisco and in Southern California on topics including fine printing, design, typography, bookbinding, collecting, California history, and much, much more. The Book Club of California community is made up of collectors, printers, designers, booksellers, publishers, writers, and book lovers of all kinds. Membership in the Book Club of California is open to all, and if anyone who is not a member is interested in finding out more about membership, please feel free to speak with me or any of the staff this evening or at any time. And now it's my pleasure to welcome you again to the Book Club and to tonight's program, the 2025 Oscar Lewis Awards. The Oscar Lewis Awards were established by the Book Club of California in 1994 in honor of Oscar Lewis, San Francisco author, historian, and Book Club of California secretary from 1921 to 1946. The Oscar Lewis Awards recognize outstanding contributions in two fields, Western history and the book arts. Past awardees include some of the most accomplished printers, designers, book artists, and historians. Some of them are with us tonight here in the club rooms, or they're joining us online via Zoom. So welcome. Tonight's honorees are equally talented and impressive. Before we begin, I first want to thank Dina Pollock for designing and printing the elegant letterpress invitations and certificates that we will be presenting to our honorees this evening. I also want to thank Terry Castaneda, Gloria Condrup, Stephanie Kimbrough Dolan, the co-chairs of the Oscar Lewis Awards Committee. I think you're all here. Do you want to just wave your hands to let us know who you are? Now you know who's behind the curtain. The committee is responsible for reviewing nominations from the membership and for selecting the honorees. The co-chairs were assisted by committee members Abigail Marquin, I always have a problem saying that name, and William Gao. Thank you all for your incredible work. Terry Castaneda and Gloria Condrup will be presenting the awards this evening. Now, honorees will be making brief remarks, but we will not have time for questions and comments for each presenter and each recipient, either from the in-person audience here in San Francisco or from you on Zoom. If you are joining us on Zoom, you can use the chat to share your thoughts or send your congratulations to our honorees. Thank you all. And now, Terry, the podium is yours.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Terry Castaneda. Thank you all for being here to celebrate our 2025 Oscar Lewis Award honorees. I want to begin by saying that I have known tonight's recipient of the Oscar Lewis Award for Western History for nearly a quarter century, and I couldn't be more impressed with her commitment to history of California and the West. We talk a lot these days in history and print culture about recovery initiatives, projects intended to excavate and bring forward voices and stories that have been overlooked, silenced, or erased from the archives and historical record. And I'm here to tell you that Dr. Shirley Ann Wilson Moore has been doing this for almost 40 years. Dr. Moore earned her PhD in American history from the University of California, Berkeley in 1989. She presently holds the title Professor Emerita in the Department of History at California State University, where she developed and taught courses in African American history, African American Western history, and the history of African American women in the West. In 2023, she was the recipient of the Western History Association's Honorary Lifetime Membership Award for notable achievements in the field of Western history. She has 3 award-winning books to her credit: Sweet Freedom's Plains, African Americans on the Overland Trails, 1841 to 1869, published in 2016 by the University of Oklahoma Press; To Place Our Deeds, the African American Community in Richmond, California, 1910 to 1963, published by the University of California Press in 2000, and African American Women Confront the West, 1600 to 2000, a volume she co-edited with Quintard Taylor, published in 2003 by the University of Oklahoma Press. In addition to her books, Dr. Moore is the author of many journal articles, essays, and book chapters. For the sake of time, I'm going to dispense with full citations, but I want to enumerate some of these to convey the scope of her work, such as Anonymous, Black Gold Seeker at Auburn Ravine in 1852. Passing, the afterword to Robert Chandler's book, San Francisco Lithographer, African-American artist Grafton Tyler Brown. I Want It to Come Out Right, forward to Rudolph M. Lapp's Archie Lee, a California fugitive slave case. No Cold Weather to Grapple With, African-American Expectations of California, 1900 to 1950. We Feel the Want of Protection, The Politics of Law and Race in California, 1848 to 78. And Do You Think I'll Lug Trunks? African Americans in Gold Rush, California. Dr. Moore has given her time and expertise to numerous advisory boards and professional committees. From 2011 to 12, she chaired the Liberty Legacy Foundation Award Committee for the Organization of American Historians. From 2004 to 13, she was an advisor to the National Park Service's Rosie the Riveter Homefront Project. She has served on 3 Western History Association prize committees, as a trustee for the California Historical Society and a California Council for the Humanities board member. Finally, Dr. Moore has contributed to many public history projects. Most notably, she has worked as a consultant and on-camera historian for the following documentary films: African American Motoring, The Green Book for Donner Memorial State Park, Rosie the Riveter World War II Homefront National Historical Park for the National Park Service, Rising Above, Building the Indomitable City for the Center for Sacramento History and Historic Old Sacramento Foundation, and Meet Mary Ellen Pleasant, Mother of Civil Rights in California, broadcast on PBS in 2008. Please join me in welcoming and congratulating Dr. Shirley Ann Wilson Moore, recipient of the 2025 Oscar Lewis Award for Western History. I'd like to ask Shirley to give a few remarks after I present her with this letterpress printed certificate.
Well, just thank you for that beautiful introduction, Terry. And it's great to be here and actually learn about this wonderful organization. I have just a few brief remarks for you. And I want to offer my heartfelt thanks to Kevin Kosick and Terry Castaneda, and to all the members of the board of directors of the Book Club of California. First of all, I'm deeply honored and really humbled, really, to be the recipient of this reward and to be included among the distinguished ranks of previous awardees. Thank you all. Now, in my brief remarks this evening, I would like to sketch out a little bit of the path that led me to become a historian of the North American West, a path I have followed for more than 50 years these days. Images of rugged pioneers and settlers and intrepid mountain men have been promulgated by historians and scholars, and of course, our popular culture. They've been embedded in our national consciousness and have taken on a hallowed place in the widespread perception of the American West. However, each step that I've taken on the Western history path, time and time again, has resulted in my re-encountering, if you will, and reassessing the region, the West, in order to get to the real West. Now, I'm going to go back to when I was a 12-year-old girl in 1961, a television documentary narrated by Gary Cooper and produced by the National Broadcasting Company's Project 20 series called The Real West, aired in 1961. It was hailed as groundbreaking at the time, and the film had a laudable goal of presenting the West as it really was by using words, photographs, letters, journals, and diaries of actual Westerners. And stripping the Western region of the mythology and romanticism that surrounded it. The documentary, for example, deflated the myth of the glamorous cowboy life by relocating cowboys, one of the most iconic Western symbols, to the ranks of underpaid, often exploited working classes of the 19th century. Legendary Western figures in that documentary, like Wyatt Earp, Belle Starr, and Billy the Kid, were shown as human beings with all the flaws and shortcomings of mere mortals. I didn't know it then in 1961, sitting in front of that black and white television watching the documentary. Didn't know it then, but that film had obvious problems. One of the most glaring ones I really thought about later, much later, was its portrayal of the struggles of Native American peoples who inhabited the Western region and their fights to retain their lands and autonomy. The story of Western Native peoples was reduced in that film to a composite that gave them little agency and individuality. I'd learn about this stuff later. Now, despite these critical shortcomings, however, as a 12-year-old girl hungry for images and stories that reflected the lives of and people that I knew to be part of the West, this documentary had an enormous impact on me. It prompted my first thoughts, albeit hazily developed, but first thoughts of doing history, of becoming a historian. And I wasn't really sure what that all meant. Years later, though, after taking a few history courses at UCLA as an undergraduate after a disastrous encounter with a statistical course, that I thought it would be a social worker, but that's another story. I began to take a few history courses at UCLA there and began to understand just how far short this documentary that had made such an impact on me had fallen from its original goal. It gave scant attention to what historian Anne Hyde has called the human complexity, end quote, of the North American Western frontier and the implications it had for the region and the country. It was virtually oblivious to the abundant incidents and peoples that led historian Al Hurtado to characterize the North American West as a, quote, cosmopolitan place, a meeting ground for people of disparate cultures and conflicting motives. Now, this all started me to thinking about what else might be out there. One of the most memorable history courses at UCLA was called the Introduction to US History, taught by Keith Berwick. Some of you might be familiar with him. He declared that unlike math or science, the study of history may not result in the right or same answer. But he said it did provide the historian with the opportunity to ask thought-provoking questions. Now, his methodological approach seemed to fit right in with my newly awakening sense of what a historian is and what a historian does. Now, fast forward years later, as a graduate student at UC Berkeley, I enrolled in a seminar on the impact of World War II on the United States. The seminar was conducted by Professor Lawrence Levine, who was my dissertation advisor, my mentor, and friend. I decided in that course to study for my seminar paper, the working class Black community in Richmond, California, and their pre-war, wartime, and post-war experiences in the workplace, in housing, education, and the blues clubs and established and the storefront churches and established churches that popped up in the city during the war and post-war periods. Now, Levine urged me to incorporate Black, what I'll call non-traditional sources into my work, but also to closely examine the role that Black working class cultural expressions like the clubs and the churches and cuisine and all sorts of things had on that community's efforts to overturn segregation and discrimination in Richmond and extending it outward in the country. Now, he framed my task as a budding historian by saying, quote, "Shirley, I want to know what those places looked like, sounded like, and smelled like." And so did I. But you can't get at that stuff generally by a written document, right, that's archived away somewhere, as you know, these things are done or had been done. The statements by Berwick and Levine, separated by more than 2 decades, a course on oral history with Willa Baum, some of you might remember her, and several seminars with Dr. Ollie Wilson on African and African American music, and history courses and seminars with Winthrop Jordan, Leon Litwack, and Earl Lewis confirmed and deepened my fascination with the past. These courses sharpened my historical abilities and continue to inform my work on Western history today. Now, I have attempted to ask thought-provoking questions about the frequently overlooked, ignored, and marginalized Westerners who have been rendered voiceless bit players in the Western story by earlier historians and some more contemporary historians of today, and the general public, because they usually left behind no written documents of their experiences. Instead, their records took the form of myriad family stories, oral histories, tall tales, music, humor, food, religious and other cultural expressions. These were their documents. When studied, such sources can restore voices and reveal motivations, perceptions, and perspectives of the ordinary everyday Westerners. Unlike the traditional documents and records that find places in libraries and archives, non-traditional sources are difficult to locate. That's a given. I have found them buried in the pages of seemingly unrelated reports or other records, and they have to be painstakingly teased out of those other sources. On other occasions, unwritten, non-traditional documents have been carefully preserved and passed down through generations of Black Westerners and others. On far too many occasions, however, these invaluable resources have been tossed into basements or attics to molder away because frequently family members regard these items as useless clutter to be thrown out. I have spent considerable time chasing down rarities like letters, journals, and diaries of Black Westerners only to come away empty-handed. The loss of such treasures deprives us all of the opportunity to learn about critical issues and experiences that help reveal the real West. On the other hand, I have met and interviewed people who have taken it upon themselves to act as family custodians of these resources, carefully wrapping them in boxes, arranging them for display in family photo albums, or lovingly packing them away in trunks, waiting, it seems, for the opportunity to show them to someone who would appreciate their worth. I remain fascinated by the past, especially that part of the past that intersects with my realities and experiences as a little Black girl born and raised in San Bernardino, California, to working class, well, let's put it as it should be put, poor parents who had left the Jim Crow South looking for a better life in the Golden State. The story of the North American West is also the story of the area's African American and other voiceless inhabitants. Most Black Westerners were ordinary or dry long so. Now that's a term that is of Gullah origin, African American term, meaning ordinary or common, dry long so. And their experiences, Western experiences, have been downplayed in the standard narrative of the West. John Lewis Wilson, my father, was born in 1902 and was one of thousands of ordinary, dry long so people who fled the South looking for more freedom in California. According to a family story, and this was passed down, a family story, he got fed up with the racial restrictions that dictated his life in the Jim Crow South. And the last straw for him came, and this was a story that just fascinated me as a kid, and made me think about it. The last straw was when he and a friend went into a white-owned cafe and bought hamburgers. The owner of the establishment told my father and his friend to go outside to the back of the building to eat their meals on the steps. Now, my father also had the temerity to ask for salt for their burgers, but was told by the owner in no uncertain terms. Now, I'm quoting this. Some of the language may be offensive to you, but this is a direct quote. This is how I heard the story. The owner told my father when he asked for salt, quote, "Nigger, my wife already put salt on that meat. You aren't getting any more," end quote. Sometime in the late 1930s or early 1940s, I'm not sure, my father, John Lewis Wilson, joined thousands of other ordinary Black Southerners and set out for Los Angeles, hoping to find a place, as he would tell his children years later, find a place where he could, quote, "eat a damn hamburger," end quote, without being humiliated. My mother, Rosa Mae Lewis Wilson, born in 1918, fled the drudgery of being the daughter of a Black sharecropper's daughter in Beggs, Oklahoma, a life that held few options for Black women and offered even fewer opportunities for them. A well-known Black work song dating around the late 19th or early 20th century, variously titled Alberta or Rosie, and since my mother's name was Rosie, I was partial to that. This work song, this non-traditional source, underscored the dismal prospects that most Black women faced in the Jim Crow South. I'm going to sing a bit of it for you, just a bit. And some of you might know it, so you can join in if you do. Okay, here we go. Oh, Rosie, oh, Lord, gal, well now. Oh, Rosie, oh, Lord, gal, well now. When you marry, don't marry no farming man. Well now, every day, Monday, whole handle in your hand. Well now, when you marry, don't marry no farming man. Every day, Monday, whole handle in your hand. Well, oh, Rosie, oh, Lord, gal, well now, oh, Rosie, well, oh, Lord, gal, now, when you marry railroad man, well, now, when you marry a railroad man, well, now, every day, Sunday, dollar in your hand, well, now, every day, Sunday, dollar in your hand, well, now, oh, Rosie, oh, Lord, gal. No, thanks. Now, my mother, Rosa May Lewis, left Oklahoma sometime in 1943 on a Los Angeles bound train filled with Black soldiers and other African Americans, all seeking wider economic, educational, and social opportunities. She arrived in California a week later. My mother and father, two Black Okies, met in Los Angeles, got married in Las Vegas, Nevada, and eventually moved to San Bernardino, California in the post-war period. My approach to doing history using non-traditional sources to hear the voices of the ordinary Black and other Westerners has been the cornerstone of my work. Such sources have contributed to the restoration of the presence and agency of African Americans, enslaved and free, Native Americans, women, Mexicans, and Mexican Americans, all inhabitants of the West who were most always reduced to bit players in the story of the region. This approach to doing history also challenges the traditional account of Western expansion, settlement, and progress. Now, this methodology is evident in the outpouring of scholarship on the North American West that is being turned out by an increasing number of historians and scholars, established and just emerging. And their encounters with the complexities of the West has led them to reframe the region both physically and perceptually. Thanks to the relentless advancements in technology, this new assessment of the West now allows historians to disseminate the works in ways I could not even dream of as a girl watching that TV documentary in 1961. At the heart of this new scholarship is the willingness, however, of historians to ask perceptively nuanced and thought-provoking questions about the West, its inhabitants, and their traditional and non-traditional sources. This approach to doing history continues to yield a more complex and, most importantly, a more accurate portrayal of the real West. And I'll close my remarks right there. Thank you so much. Thank you.
My goodness, who's going to do this next part? I guess I'm going to jump up here. Let's see. We said thank you. Thank you, Shirley. That was great. Congratulations. Next up to present, oh, round of applause. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on it. Two rounds of applause. That's pretty good. Next to present the 2025 Oscar Lewis Award for the Book Arts, please welcome Gloria Condrup. I'm going to fix this PowerPoint, which seems to be frozen here.
Was I supposed to do a PowerPoint?
No, you were not. Oh, interesting. Now we got that up there. Oh, something is frozen. I'm gonna stop this share. We can't even stop the share.
Stop sharing.
Nothing is happening.
So if you hit the PowerPoint on there, the icon.
Force quits. Can you move that?
There.
Oh,
There we go.
Let's see if we can get rid of this now.
move that down. You can move it down.
We'll just move it all the way down. That's as far down as we can get it. There we go. We got a little, that's not so bad. We got back to technology here. Gloria Condro.
Thank you. Perhaps this is a great example of why those of us who are printers and bookmakers ignore technology or don't depend on technology. I guess it's rare, or perhaps never, the case where someone who is perhaps a teenager or someone who's starting college and says, gee, I think I'm going to be a fine printer and bookmaker when I go to college. I don't think I have ever met anyone who has made that decision before being exposed to the book arts. Norman Clayton studied typography and photography at Rhode Island School of Design. And I guess that's where he discovered his passion for bookmaking while printing on a Vandercook proof press in the RISD type shop. He developed his interest in fine paper, graphic design, printing, and hand bookbinding at that time, and it came together. Not unlike perhaps a lot of other very famous printers and bookmakers who are in this room here to honor you tonight.
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Okay, how's that? Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Normally I speak too loud, but for you, I will make sure you can hear me. So to repeat again, Norman studied typography and photography at Rhode Island School of Design. And it's here he really discovered his passion for fine printing and bookmaking. After graduating, he had the good fortune to run a letterpress shop for Michael Osborne in Berkeley. Now, by the way, I don't know, Norm, if you know this, but I know Michael Osborne. What a surprise. It's a very small community, not for letterpress printing, but Michael Osborne and I both graduated from Art Center. We had the same mentors. And then even though he went into the field of letterpress printing, I had no intention at that time of doing it. So he started working with Michael Osborne at One Heart Press, and they were both motivated to produce very high quality printing, the best possible. Michael, I think, was very generous to Norman. He is a generous person. Gave him time to develop his skills as a typographer and pressman. Although Norm's mentor, Jim, and I'm not going to pronounce his name right, I apologize right now, Wayledge.
That's right.
Yes. Who Norm met in the early 90s, helped him tremendously over the years. And Jim eventually sold Norman his shop, Classic Letterpress, when he was ready to retire. Then in about 2010, Norm moved his shop, not an easy thing to do, as we all know as printers, and his family to Southern California, to Ojai, where he is currently still printing and creating and working. He began Providence Press with the aim of publishing the world's wisdom and poetry in fine press limited edition books. To date, he has published 2 books with Stephen Mitchell and 2 poetry chapbooks with Dana Goya. In addition, Norm has designed and printed books for clients and himself. Many of the beautiful fine press publications that he collaborated with are out of print as is most very well printed books. It's a shame that we cannot preserve or have enough copies over the years of the work that Norm has produced. For the Book Club of California, he has designed and printed Poetry at the Edge, 5 contemporary California poets, The Life and Times of Joe Mora, iconic artist of the American West, and printed the text from California, poems by Dana Gioia, engravings by Richard Wagoner. He has designed and printed at least 6 previous volumes of the book club's quarterly newsletter, and he has designed and printed many invitations, award certificates, bookmarks, keepsakes, and other ephemera for the book club. Of course, you've paid him well, Kevin. Of course. Norm has been a book club member since 2006 and served on the board from 2018 to most recently 2024. And he chaired the Oscar Lewis Awards Committee last year. Now, decades have passed before Norman would ever consider himself a fine printer. Norman, you are not just a fine printer, you are a master's printer. And I think receiving this award really cements the fact that you have gone beyond being a fine printer. So please join me in congratulating Norman Sherman, recipient of the 2025 Oscar Lewis Award for the Book Arts. So well deserved. You are such an inspiration and a nobleman for continuing what we consider a very important aspect of the world of book arts and fine printing. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we can go home now. Whoops. Oh, that's for me. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for this honor. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you to the nominating committee. I'm very happy to be here and to speak with you all tonight. I'm very honored and touched to see friends and colleagues here who evidently feel I deserve this award. Thank you. When I was told that I will be the recipient of the Oscar Lewis Awards for Book Arts this year, my very first thought was, oh, that's just crazy. And it is crazy, but it's also very significant. Here's a photograph of me with my first relief printing machine.
Technology. Oh. Imagine it.
The typewriter. And I thank Pat Ray because you all, I'm sure many of you will remember the slide that the image that he's shown of his first press that he received when he was 11 years old, Pat. Yeah. So that inspired me to show this picture. And thanks to my mom too for taking it and framing it for me. I didn't become a writer, I became an artist. I appreciate the feel of handmade paper. I appreciate the sound of the printing press, the smell of ink, the glow of a skillfully printed page. Here's a photograph of me taken 60 years later. 60 years later. at the Heidelberg cylinder press I run today, which was purchased by Adrian Wilson after he received the 1983 MacArthur Fellows Award. Thank you to my parents. Thank you to Jim Whalage, my mentor, Michael Osborne, Mary Austin, Walter Hamady, Jan Baker, and many other caring souls who have encouraged and supported me all these years. What are we really celebrating here tonight? It appears to me that we are honoring goodness and dedication and mastery. Thank you for recognizing the dedication I've given to this field of book arts, and that Shirley has given in her field of Western history. What mastery have you achieved? What mastery are you working on toward? My life is dedicated to my family, to my children, both. I love you both. My life is dedicated to fine printing. A finely printed book can satisfy the mind's curiosity, the soul's longing, and the eye's desire for beauty. In the Rhode Island School of Design type shop as a young person, I discovered that I can make a luscious book by hand in one place in a short amount of time and communicate anything I value. That's powerful. That is powerful. In the type shop, you can write a poem, set the type, print the page, bind the book, and give it to a friend, all in one place. I value a book made by hand and with heart that communicates something worthy. My work in bookmaking and typography is honest. It's constantly challenging. It upholds an incredibly important tradition of artisans. I go to bed happy. I began Providence Press with the aim to make books that are as beautiful as the words are wise. Now that's quite a challenge I've given myself. To make books as beautiful as the writing is wise. Maybe I haven't achieved that yet. But if I make one book in this lifetime that communicates timeless wisdom, is a delight to hold, and possibly transmits some spiritual energy, I'll be satisfied. This is not a unique aim. I think of one of the earliest known printed texts in the world, the Empress Kokin in 764 AD commissioned the production and dispersal of approximately 1 million miniature pagodas, each containing a scroll printed with a Buddhist prayer. The 42-line Bible, printed by Johannes Gutenberg in the mid-1450s, achieved this goal, and was one of the first books printed in the West by letterpress. Can you imagine working in a field where some of the first accomplishments in your area of study are still considered among the most exemplary? I'm interested in mastery. Mastery seems to me to be achieving a high level of expertise through persistent practice and then not slowing down. because the dedication originates from a deep love for the subject. This love drives a constant quest for continued learning and giving. I find satisfaction in a well-printed page and from learning something new every day. I'm grateful for my endless curiosity. I enjoy not knowing. I'm open. I'm happy, searching for the next small attainment while making a meaningful book along the way. For most of my career, I considered myself a kid, looking up to the Bay Area greats. Among them, Jack Stoffaker, Pat Ray, Peter Koch, Andrew Hoyam, Alistair Johnston, and of course, my mentor, Jim Whalage. Receiving this award, and now being in my 60s, I can no longer consider myself a newcomer. With that, I'm seriously concerned about the future of fine typographic book printing. Not fearing the lack of interest in these books, more so that there are fewer and fewer Californian pressmen and women capable of producing the work, and fewer press mechanics who can fix the presses. But as I get older, I am able to look back further. How can the Book Club of California community promote the future of fine printers while also promoting the future of fine printing? I appeal to all of those who love letterpress, paper making, handbook binding, to find ways to nurture the next generation of printers. My father died recently. He loved me very much. I moved my letterpress shop this year and dedicated the new space to him. I've changed since he died. I feel more sustained love in my heart for myself and for everyone. I feel he granted me something immense and ineffable when he died. What does that have to do with printing? Maybe there's a book I printed that is not an example of my finest printing. But just as I cannot bring my father back, I cannot change what I've done or what I said in the last sentence. Yet I can learn and I can change. There's something very freeing when I can truly stop fussing about what is done and give all my consciousness to the present moment. My prayer for my children is that they love themselves as much as I and their mother love them. So I'm fortunate that my life work is not really separate from my work life. I love and I learn from it all. And I'll tell you one thing more. As I continue my dedication to my children, to letterpress printing, to my students, to my spiritual life, my best work is yet to come. Mary Rasala Laird received this award a few years ago, and she ended her talk reading 3 poems. I would like to conclude my talk by reading 3 poems. Thank you. This is from the Tao Te Ching version by Stephen Mitchell. Somebody printed it with point size pretty small, so I have to wear my glasses. That would be me. Express yourself completely. Then be quiet. Be like the forces of nature. When it blows, there is only wind. When it rains, there is only rain. When the clouds pass, the sun shines through. If you open yourself to the Tao, you are one with the Tao, and you can embody it completely. If you open yourself to insight, you are one with insight, and you can use it completely. If you open yourself to loss, you are one with loss, and you can accept it completely. Open yourself to the Tao. Then trust your natural responses, and everything will fall into place. This poem is called Ode to Joy by Billy Collins. Ode to Joy. Friedrich Schiller called joy the spark of divinity. But she visits me on a regular basis, and it doesn't take much for her to appear. The salt next to the pepper by the stove. The garbage man ascending his station on the back of the moving garbage truck. Or I'm just eating a banana in the car, listening to Buddy Guy. In other words, she seems down to earth, like a girl getting off a bus with a suitcase, and no one's there to meet her. It's a little after 4 in the afternoon, one of the first warm days of spring. She sits on her suitcase to wait and slides on her sunglasses. How do I know she's listening to the birds? I'll read a poem by E.E. Cummings. I read this poem 35 years ago as the student speaker in my commencement at the Rhode Island School of Design. And I was just back from my alumni reunion, and I was remembering the talk I gave at that day. So I thought I would do the same thing here, end my talk with this poem. I thank you, God, for most this amazing day. for the leaping greenly spirits of trees, and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings and the gay, great happening, illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any, lifted from the no of all nothing, human merely being, doubt, unimaginable you? Now the eyes of my eyes awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Norman Clayton. Congratulations, Norman. Congratulations, Shirley. And thank you everyone for joining us here in the club rooms and for joining us on Zoom for the 2025 Oscar Lewis Awards. I'm delighted that we're able to gather in person and that you were able to join us virtually. We look forward to seeing you at another book club event in the very near future. This concludes the presentation of the Oscar Lewis Awards. Thank you everyone for being with us. And thank you again for your support of the Book Club of California. Good night.